Now, if we just scroll down a little way in our document here, I just want to point out something we might miss later on when we print this. If we show our layers, we can see that our wheel layer, if we go ahead and turn it on, is actually sitting above our type. So I just want to make sure that we take our type layer and drag it so it sits above the wheel, okay? Just wanted to point that out so we don't make a mistake later. Now, what we want to do is take this type and use it in the 6 custom columns that we have on the bottom of our A3 page, all right? So let's go ahead and double-click this text frame, select all of the type, and copy it into memory. This will allow us to paste it formatted into our other frame. Let's go back to the main selection tool, and I'll just fit down in the window so we can see everything. Now we can zoom up on our text frames down here in the lower left-hand side, okay? Perfect. Now what I'm going to do is go to outline mode here just to make it a little bit easier to see what's going on, because there's a lot of information happening here, and I'm going to close up our layers palette as well. Now basically remember that each of these shapes was drawn separately, therefore they're not text frames and they're not connected in any way. So the first thing we need to do is make one of them into a single text area. Alright, so just make sure the frame is selected, hit the T for the type tool, position the cursor almost towards the edge until we get that rounded corner, and click to make this into a text frame, okay? All we need to do now is paste that type in and it will flow in and fill that entire frame. Now you can see the customized area that we have. It's automatically formatting and pushing that type down into a triangular shape, which is exactly what we wanted. But now what we want to do is tell Illustrator to flow the type from frame to frame to frame so it continues all the way across all 6. Well, that's done, like I mentioned, with an overflow, which we see here down at the bottom. I'm just going to zoom in so we can see this nice and easily. This small red icon that suggests overflow, this is actually the tool that you use to link text frames together. All we have to do is click on that, which basically, as you can see, loads up the cursor with type, so it's now ready for us to place it somewhere else. Now, the same rules apply here with regards to creating type. You see it's got a straight dotted edge to it. This means we can click and draw a new text frame here or create a brand new line of type. However, because we want to do it as area type, if we come over another object and position our cursor anywhere near the edge, okay, you see we're looking for that round corner, we can now click and you'll see the text flows from one straight into the other, which is very cool. So now we can continue across with the same process. Let's make sure we click on that to load up our cursor with type, come into the next frame and look for that rounded corner to make sure that the text flows in when you click. All right, so I'm just going to repeat the same process, load up the cursor with type, come over to the next text frame and make sure that drops in. Let's scroll over here towards the right. Once again, click and load up, position over here, load into the next frame, and then finally choose the icon again for the last time, position it over our final text frame and click to turn that into a text area. Now we still have overflow. There is a lot of type in here. This is really only an example type file for you, but you now know how you could format other text frames and continue the linking process. But if I zoom down now and just scroll out here and preview the finished product, you can see why we went to the trouble of doing those custom text frames. I think this is really very nice, just this hint of a mountain silhouette in the background, but with the type formatted and the guides that we already placed in at the right size. I think this works very, very nicely. Now, in the same vein that we have these guides in here, we probably should have them over here on the A4 page as well. So let's figure out a quick way that we can do that. Let's go into outline mode. Okay, now remember that this shape, don't forget, has multiple columns in it, so we can utilize the measurement information there to position our guides for us. So what we're going to do is let's come down here and take one of the guides that's on the A3. Okay, I'm simply going to copy it, or in fact we could just hold down our Option key and drag a copy over here onto our A4 page. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little way and make sure that we align this to the top left hand side of our frame. And the reason I'm doing that is I just want to make sure that we can snap it to the same height as everything else. So in fact, if I go to preview mode here, we can see how far that line comes down. Now we can go to free transform, and don't forget, as we should to be safe, let's go to transform here and make sure that in the flyout options, stroke and effects is not turned on. Then we don't accidentally scale the stroke from the half point that it currently is. Okay, just want to keep pointing that out to you so you have it in your mind. So I'm just going to drag the anchor point up here and drag it until it lines with the baseline of our type as it stands. Then we'll come back to the main selection tool and we'll just nudge our way down a little bit here so we can see everything. So now what I'm going to do is just move that line across. I'm just using the nudge, and don't forget the shift nudge command. Using shift and your right hand arrow will multiply by 10, whatever your nudge value is set to. And I mean, I'm not being 100% accurate here, but that roughly sits in the middle of our column. We can always adjust this later. But what I want to do is duplicate this twice more now into the dead center of the other columns. And how do I know how far that is? Well, remember, our area type function is alive, and so we can go in and change the settings at any time. Well, we can also use that to our advantage. If we select the text frame, let's go into the type menu, go down to area type, and we can see that the actual width of our columns is 38.75 mil, all right? We have a gutter of 5 millimeters each time, so the total distance between gutter to gutter to gutter in the dead center is actually 43.75 millimeters. So the information's all there, all we have to do is use it in our move dialog. So I'll cancel that, select our line, I'm going to hit the enter key to bring up the move dialog box, and we're going to key in 43.75 millimeters and make sure we hit copy. Okay, we now get a duplicate there. All we have to do is Command D or Control D on the PC to duplicate that a further time, and that now fills in the lines on our A4 page. Perfect.